The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by BodyBio, supplements for a healthier life. Get 20% off any BodyBio order with code RTRS20 at bodybio.com. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. And Stateside Urban Craft Vodka, the official sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter, statesidevodka.com. On the show today, the Sixers are at camp. Ben Simmons is not. We'll talk about what the Sixers said and what they're doing, including Joel Embiid's now famous, we've all seen the videos quote. Ben Simmons says he never wants to play with Joel Embiid again. We have tickets to go see Amos Lee at the Met. I didn't tell you this, but we got tickets. Amos is playing April 15th at the Met in Philly, and we have some tickets to give away. And then Coach David Thorpe of TrueHoop.com joins us. A listener got furious at something he wrote and said about Ben Simmons. So we talk about player development coaching and then whether Ben Simmons can turn it around. I mentioned Stateside Vodka, the sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe at rightstorickysanchez.com/newsletter. Two things I want you to know about Stateside Vodka. First of all, the vodka, gluten-free, kosher, distilled 7 times, made in Philly. Amazing. The best and only vodka that you want. And then there's the vodka sodas, the canned things, right? It's got vodka, it's got soda water and juice. And that's it. Natural fruit juice. No added sugars, no artificial sugars. 90 calories, I think, comes in 4 great flavors. You get that party pack at statesidevodka.com. We love you, Stateside Vodka. So thank you for the sponsorship of the Corner 3 and the Ricky. Should we do we'll do the tickets right before Coach Thorpe. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
Laddie, sweetie, the man is here. Say the name, I say the name, I say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who has been studying Kyle Neubeck's faraway practice videos on Twitter for highlights of Charles Bassey. That is Mike Levin.
We're back. We're back in. I'm melting down. I'm melting down all the time. It's a constant meltdown. It is a lot of like head in my hands. It's a lot of like, why am I like this? Why do I stake my livelihood on this team? And then also I would add the Phillies, which is another bad idea. I've made a lot of bad decisions. And I blame my parents largely for it, but I can't evade responsibility as well. So here we are. We're melting down all the time. We have what I think is a very good and interesting conversation with David Thorpe on the back half of this podcast about Simmons and everything. But this is dark. This is a dark time to give a shit. It really feels like, how are we still doing this? Not me and you in this podcast. Like, the Sixers are still trying to be the Sixers. Like, when a team you would think that a team just eventually goes away. Like, after all this, if a TV show was this much of a disaster behind the scenes or in front of the camera, whatever it is, eventually the network would be like, we got to pull the plug. We got to lose it. I don't care how much money they're making, whatever. But the Sixers just keep going. And there's never any time to like take a pause for a couple years and then look back and be like, actually, we had some good times. It's just like continuous dumb fuck, weird, bizarre storylines on top of storylines. And we're just living in like the rubble of of all the chaos that we've already had to suffer through. And it wears on me, and I'm upset that it wears on me this much. So yeah, melting down.
Just give us a final season. Just say it's the fucking final season.
The last dance, the Sixers. We're
yeah.
done after this. We are going away. The Bluecoats will remain, but the Sixers are gone.
As I mentioned, we'll have in about 20 minutes, we'll give away, we'll actually talk it through how we'll give away the tickets to go see Amos. I don't know, Mike, you haven't been to the Met, right? In Philly, the new concert venue. It is beautiful. Amos has done some shows with Mutlu now, but doing a proper tour in the spring after his record comes out, and is playing the Met on April 15th, and tickets go on sale Friday at 10 a.m. But we have some to give away. We'll do that later. Okay, so as you're mentioning the just the dumbest timeline. So Sam Amick writes, actually, I was listening to Zach Lowe, and Zach, friend of the pod, Zach said his prediction was that Ben would be with the Sixers before November 1st, that he's going to come back. Even though they will eventually trade him, he's going to come back.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. Yeah, I disagree too. Almost immediately afterwards, or actually, I think this was first, Sam Amick wrote for The Athletic, people who have intimate knowledge of how he sees this situation continue to insist that Simmons is done playing with Embiid. There's nothing personal about this choice, it seems, but the 25... There's nothing personal aside, nothing personal. But the 25-year-old Simmons has clearly decided that his career is better off without Embiid blocking the runways in the paint that he so badly needs to succeed. Also, Ramona Shelbourne says he's prepared to sit out the entire season. So I wanted to tell Zach that I understand what he's thinking, but I just don't think he understands who he's dealing with in Simmons and the idea.
Well, and Rich Paul.
Of coming back is, Rich Paul aside, I just don't think it's something that Simmons would stomach. I really like, in all the time that I said that I thought it would eventually come down to Embiid or Simmons and all of that stuff, I just never in my wildest dreams thought it would be this fucked up. Like his career, and obviously that is fed to Sam Amick from somebody. I think it's coming. I'm not criticizing Amick. I think it's coming from somebody in Simmons' camp, the way he wrote it. His career is better off without Embiid blocking the runways in the paint that he so badly needs to succeed.
Maybe. I mean, the same Embiid. People with Embiid would say the same thing about Simmons, right? Arguably, Embiid's the better player, obviously, but if you would say the same thing, like Simmons gets in the way,
except that when like there's plenty of time when Embiid is not in the way. Like there's plenty of opportunity. Like it's just like the whole thing is just what
I think is it's just brinksmanship. It's both. Yeah. I mean, like they made this trade request earlier in the summer. It's disputed when exactly it was, whether it was right after the season or a little bit longer during Chicago, the combine, or later on when they met in LA in August or whatever it is. There was some trade request made that he's just ready to go. And then the Sixers have not acquiesced to it, whether it's because they don't want to make the trade or they don't want to make the trade for a middling value, or they don't want to make the trade for what is clearly the lowest value of his career thus far. And so Rich Paul, with this many years left on Simmons' deal, he's driving the bus. And so it's like, he's just trying to use whatever limited leverage they have, which is to like say more shit to make the situation more untenable for the Sixers. And I mean, like, you're basically like, if Rich Paul's very close to just like taking a baseball bat and just like knocking down William Penn. Like it's just very close to just like, we're to keep going from that. It's like when you're bluffing in poker, when you're like, all right, I'm going to do a little bit of bluff. It's like, oh, fuck, they called me. And okay, well, I guess I got to keep bluffing. And just more and more. And all of a sudden you're like, my wedding ring's in here. And like, there's no going back at this point. And so that's why I don't think he's going to come back. I think it's over. I think it's ugly. I also think that the worst might be behind us. Just like the first day of media day. I mean, your face. You're right. To say that about the Sixers, the worst behind us is very famous last words. Like, absolutely, fully agree. But at least like as far as the arc of the season goes, like the Sixers media day was day one. And so now it's like, he didn't show up for media day. And now it's like, well, he's still not showing up for training camp and he's still not showing up for the regular season. At least the first one, I think, is the toughest one to deal with. And now it's just like, okay, he's gone. And unless there are more reports, which surely there will be, because how many hundreds of thousands of clicks on new, very small reports of like, actually, he doesn't want to play with Korkmaz anymore because Korkmaz wears his favorite color and he doesn't like having to share that. Like, what are we doing? People just like writing whatever the fuck. But I do think at least like the Band-Aid has been ripped in some way. And I'm not counting out the idea that the Band-Aid can then get smeared over our lifeless body and rubbing alcohol all over our eyes and ears. But I think let's just move the fuck on and trade him for somebody that you think helps. I trust Daryl to be more patient than I am, but I also I'm melting down.
Could you imagine the reports, like if this were to go on from December, like, Sam Amick in The Athletic says Simmons was shocked at how small Embiid's dick was in the shower. Like he couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And you have those things, which are obviously like whether it's leaks from whoever's camp or whatever it is. And then you have like Doc Rivers, who just is the most honest, too honest. We don't need to be too honest. There was a report, and this is not relevant. He's already done the Ben Simmons thing. He's already like lied, saying he wasn't talking about that, and it's very easy to blame the press, and the press is to blame about a bunch of things. But like, bro, you said
not this.
Not this. You said it, and you can't like take it back. He just said like in training camp, he goes like, "Oh, Maxi's not a natural point guard," and it's like, well, just don't fucking say that. You don't need to say that. You don't need to say that. Doc, like if he had bad breath, would you be like, Maxi has terrible breath? Like I have to say it. Like we got to do it. Like don't do it. Just chill the fuck out. Just give boring answers. Like talk about anything else. Like talk about stories from the 80s and like just bring up things that happened to you when you were the player. Be that guy. It doesn't matter. But be less honest about it. Always. Please. I'm tired. So tired.
So, all right. So what I'll do is I wanted to go through a few of the quotes from Media Day that I liked. We'll do the Simmons ones first so we can get them out of the way, and then some of the more fun ones. So Doc, who you mentioned, obviously just basically said that Simmons couldn't handle playing. Tobias Harris said a similar thing, that like he's not built to play here. Doc Rivers says it's tough to play here. Ben didn't say that. I can't say he said that. That's just an assumption. Yeah. Tobias Harris on Simmons. I like Tobias. I would say Tobias is the media day and training camp fucking all-star. Because he's a great talker.
Yeah.
Looks great. Like looks in incredible shape at the beginning of camp. Yeah. Just seems like a leader, has that great, like Long Island drawl that he has. Like just sounds great. All of it.
Says he's working on threes off the bounce.
Yeah,
sure.
It just says the right thing.
You know what we want to hear, Tobias.
So he said the best thing about Simmons. We hope the situation could get resolved. If it doesn't, we move on and we get this thing going. End of the day, the 29 other teams that play against us do not care.
For sure.
I like that. Good.
For sure.
So then the last one, we get to Embiid. And Embiid had a great media session overall. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. I thought he did great.
I think, and we talk to Thorpe about it a little bit, but I think the reputation Embiid got earlier in his career about being like immature, I think has carried with him longer than it should. Like I don't think he's that person anymore. I think especially since he became a father, he's really like visibly changed his demeanor. Not that he's still not fun and having a good time, and not that I didn't enjoy who he was before, but I think as far as like carrying himself with a level of responsibility and maturity around the league, around his teammates, around the franchise, I think he's grown up more than people give him credit for. He's also 27 or 28 already, so he's there.
So Joel, the Simmons quote, well, there were a lot of them. First of all, I really like this one. Honestly, we just all got to grow up.
Yeah.
I look at it in a way that, for example, I understand being in trade rumors and all that stuff. It's just part of the business. If Golden State came and offered Steph and Clay for me, do you think the Sixers would say no to that? I would say yes to that, because how do you say no to that? That's what they do. They're always going to try to find ways to get better. You can't be mad at that.
I love when Joel acts like he's just like, yeah, I'm on Trade Machine. I'm out here doing the same thing. I play 2K. Like, it's funny when he like talks about it like that in a fun way. I do think like part of what he's alluding to is the fact that the Harden trade negotiation was tough for him over the leaders. It's been reported a number of times that like everybody basically thought that trade was done, and it's
and
horrifying.
Simmons wanted it to happen. He wanted it to happen.
Well, at this point, I was like, good, let's go somewhere else. It's horrifying to think about like what Harden and Embiid could have been together with just Durant and Kyrie in Brooklyn. I think it would have been very good. Now we're looking at D'Angelo Russell and Slop. So it's different. But I think I get why a player would be like, yo, you wanted to trade me? Then like, I want to go and I can do it. And that's how it is. It's unfortunately not the way, even with player empowerment, it's not the way it really works, where you can just like say like, if you want to trade me, I want to trade myself. Like, it's just that not quite that easy. But yeah, I thought Embiid gave a good quote.
And then the quote, he just, it happened with his tweets when he talked about Ben. He cannot help himself. They asked what Ben, because Embiid was saying what he could do to improve. And Joel's quote about what Ben could do to improve, I'm sure we all see the videos, so that would help.
Yeah. I don't think that's intentional shade. I just don't think, what else do you say? Like, do you go like a long tirade about like, well, if he shot threes, or if he got to the line more often, or if he even like became like a really good cutter? Like, just, we know what it is. It's just like those videos, he does it. So those would be nice.
You would enjoy this. The thing actually that I took most from Media Day was, I'm like excited for Maxey to fucking start. He's not a natural point guard. He's not a perfect player, but I thought Danny Green's quote on Tyrese Maxey, he's special, and I'm sure everybody could see that. If he continues to do what he does, he's going to be a really special player. He carries himself like a star, and I believe one day he will be a star. He's very mature for his age, smart, understands the game, has a good group around him that can help him. Can't do it alone. Obviously, we have to help him, but Doc has coached some pretty good point guards, and will teach him how to run the ship.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to spend a long time on it. We don't have much time, but I will say that signing Shaquille Harrison to a training camp deal is very good for Maxey. I don't think he's going to make he probably should make a team. He's good enough to be on the team. He's been on a bunch of teams, the Bulls, etc. But he's like a total dog defensively from the point of attack, and will make things hard for Maxey in training camp, and hopefully make him better in an iron sharpens iron type of way. People love saying iron sharpens iron. It's really iron sharpens iron season. Media Day, it's like you could just recall it, just like rename it iron sharpening season day.
Andre Drummond on Joel Embiid. We're like Titans. We just clash. We play hard against each other.
I can't do it. I can't. We can't. We have to limit the amount of time we spend talking about Andre Drummond this year. It's not going to be healthy for anybody. I do love seeing B-ball Paul wanting to shoot 45% from three.
Yeah, great.
45. Great, I love setting the bar even higher than 40. And also do the rookie sophomore game, which, come on, it's my favorite game. He should definitely be in there. Doc's quote today about like wanting to go small and being like, we've tried it. We have a bunch of coaches thinking about it. Do you think we haven't thought about it? And it's just like, it feels frustrating to me that and we talk about it with Thorpe, but like, you can't just play with Embiid's corpse whenever he's not on the court. Like we reanimated a corpse, and we like sort of shaped them in Joel's body and hope that he can do the same thing. And that was last year was Dwight Howard, this year it's Andre Drummond. Like, we have to do a different thing. And whether Ben's here or not, like, it'd be nice if that guy could shoot from the outside. And for so long, they just haven't done it. Like, backup center, to me, is not the hardest position to find in basketball. But for the Sixers, it has been 4 years now. And it's disgusting. It disgusts me. And to not even try B-Ball Paul there, who's excellent and will be very good sometime, whether or not a starter, but like, fine, he's going to be fine. And he's probably just not going to play at all this year. And if he does play, he'll play as a 4 next to Drummond, and I'm going to lose my mind.
At some point, mid-season, I'm going to play the audio for you of you half-heartedly defending the Drummond signing
because it's a minimum. Like, I don't mind a minimum. Like, it's very different from
it's a roster
the Horford
spot
situation for sure.
It's a roster spot. So, and then the final one I liked from Furkan Korkmaz. I'm happy about the video. I watched the video a lot.
God bless him. God bless Korkmaz, man. I love that guy. They are a deeper team. That's the weirdest thing is that they are a deeper team. Maxey improving, Shake having a more consistent season, Korkmaz another step forward. He's a really good shooter. Niang is going to be very helpful. Like there's depth there, but it's just not enough without Simmons, and it could get bad, especially if Embiid gets hurt or Tobias gets hurt. Like it could get really ugly. Like they could be like 8-12, and that's bleak. Like it's not great. And there's people are saying like, oh, we got Milwaukee and Brooklyn are so obviously the clear front runners in the league, which I'd agree with. But like Milwaukee's basically the same team that they were last year when teams were
they won the title.
But they didn't win the title at the beginning of the year, and people were like, Giannis has improved it, and finally he does, and now it's like clear, obvious front runners. And it's like they would have lost in the second round if not for Durant's toe. And there's just like a bunch of those kinds of things. Brooklyn obviously is very good, but have to prove that they're healthy and can play together. They're obviously ridiculously loaded, but because of this weird year where the vaccinations is not a fun thing to talk about, but like Kyrie might not be able to play home games. Bradley Beal, does that factor in how much they want him or not? D'Angelo Russell, we don't even want him at all in a trade. And now he's also like shouting out Kyrie and maybe not being vaccinated. Like all this shit like matters. It's not a personal decision because like it's going to affect if guys can play or pass a physical or cause the team to miss games because there's an outbreak or whatever it is. It's like a weird thing that we're still living in it. And so like, I'm not ready to say, okay, Milwaukee and Brooklyn, like they're the teams. Let's just like plan for next year because you just never fucking know. Like you never know when their opportunity could happen. And so because Embiid's as good as he is, as healthy as he is, in great shape per doc today, better shape than last year, I'm not willing to punt a year, even though this team makes me want to punt myself in the fucking head.
Who's talking about punting a year? I don't think anybody's talking
about
punting.
If they trade Simmons for just like picks.
Oh, okay.
And then be like, well, maybe it's not the year, and they trade Tobias, and maybe it's not this, and then blah blah blah.
I wouldn't mind trading Tobias. I don't think that would matter, but I don't think he has positive trade value anyway. So, all right. So before we get to Coach Thorpe, I had a couple ideas about how to give the tickets away. We have a few pair of tickets to go see Amos Lee at the Met in April in Philadelphia, April 15th. Tickets on sale Friday at 10 a.m. at amoslee.com. I was thinking about submitting a new Valone's dish, an item at Valone's. I was thinking some sort of Tony T idea. Like, do you have something? You're usually good, quick on your feet. Funny idea. Do you have anything?
Funny idea guy.
Yeah. I mean,
we are. I mean, I think I think maybe like name a dish for Tony T at Valone's.
Okay.
In your most Tony T voice, like what would it call it? And what would a Tony T order? I would say. How about that? Where you could talk about what it is, the name of the dish, and also like how he would get it.
But you don't want them to send audio. You want them to send like an email. Maybe we get them to read the. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So send us email. Writes to RickySanchez@gmail.com. Do it by Friday, and we'll pick it. We'll pick the few best. I'll send them to Tony T and see if he'll read the few best. So what do we want? Tony T's order at Valone's.
Yeah, what sandwich he'd get and what fixings he would get on the sandwich.
Okay.
What he wouldn't have, maybe why he doesn't like it. It could just be like a little blurb. Kind of
Amos, always great in concert. The one guy I actually, before we knew him, paid to see him many times, and a great show. So thanks for the tickets to give away. All right. So coming up now is our conversation with David Thorpe of TrueHoop.com. He is at Coach Thorpe on Twitter. I had heard him for years on Zach Lowe's podcast when he was with ESPN, and now he's with Henry Abbott. So we talk about everything. We actually got an email. We explained this in there, but we got an email from a listener that was pissed off at something he wrote about Ben Simmons. So we sort of quiz him on that. We talk about the idea of being a coach to NBA players, just sort of like an individual coach, and whether or not Henry Abbott ruined the Sixers getting Damian Lillard by reporting it in the first place, which you might be surprised at his answer.
Yeah, fun interview. Also want to add, we didn't talk about the Mark Zumoff replacement and Kate Scott.
Oh,
because
yeah. Yep.
We are trying to get her on the podcast.
She will. She has said she will. So
she's going to do it. So we'll talk to her. We'll talk about all that. We're very excited to talk to her about that going forward.
Huge. Yep. The Sixers have not upgraded yet. And I'm not even going to do that. I was gonna make a comment that somebody was gonna. Very excited to have Kate Scott on the pod. That will be excited, and congratulations to her. She worked for our station in San Francisco, the game in San Francisco, one of Odyssey stations, and I'm excited to have her out here. So I'm sure she'll do great. All right, without any further ado, Coach David Thorpe. We're going to talk about DraftKings right now, the presenting sponsor of the Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast. Of course, it's not me and Mike. It's me and CJ talking about DraftKings. If you're listening to this podcast, boy, this must be so strange. But here it is. Completely live commercials that Mike is not talking during, right? Completely live. We love DraftKings Sportsbook. They are the presenting sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm very excited, by the way, that now they have same game parlays. And boy, it's a get rich quick scheme, basically. Same game parlays. Like, I love the odds of same game parlays. If you don't know what a parlay is, I've realized that not everybody knows this. What a parlay is when you take a bunch of bets that have, regular odds, and you combine them, and you have to win all of them, and you get huge odds. So the more bets you add in, the longer the odds get. So when you see on Twitter or something, somebody's like, oh, I have all these and it's plus 28,000 or whatever. That's what a parlay is. Anyway, DraftKings Sportsbook is the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and they're hooking you up right now because football is the best sport to bet on. Bet $1 on any NFL game and get $150 in bets instantly. That's bet $1 on any NFL game and get $150 in free bets instantly. That's if you're a new customer to DraftKings Sportsbook. I live near Newark Airport. You probably hear that plane outside. Do you hear it, CJ?
I do.
Yeah, right, like 5 miles away from Newark Airport. Anyway, same game parlays, $150 in free bets. Also, by the way, this week, if you place a same game parlay bet on any NFL game and you don't win, they'll credit you $25. I love DraftKings. It is safe, secure, reliable. You put your money in, you take your money out. Both of them happen quickly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code RTRS and get $150 in free bets instantly when you bet $1 on any NFL game. That's promo code RTRS to get $150 in free bets instantly. This week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or PA only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required, one per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Coach David Thorpe. So can you give obviously, like, I've heard you on, I heard you on Zach Lowe's podcast for years, and now you're part of True Hoop. Can you give your, what did you coach? Where did what is the background? Because you would just appear on Zach's pod and I was like, oh, it's Coach Thorpe. And it's like, what does he coach of? It's like, I don't know.
Sure.
What's your whole deal?
Yeah. So I'm much older than you guys. I graduated college in 87, met a super hot girl and decided not to go to grad school or take a writing job so I could go see about her, to quote the old Robin Williams line. Married her 31 years ago, took a coaching job to stay in town and hang out with her. And I was coaching high school basketball, very, very high level. Like, our best player, starter for the Florida Gators, the 94 Final Four at center. I coached a lot of great players. I went to college. And then in 93 or so, I started my own basketball academy, which most people think is the first in the world to actually coach other players from other schools, not my own team, for player development. And that grew into coaching. I think I've had 80 plus NBA players now and 100 and some odd European players or guys that played in Europe. And And then I joined the media in 2007. ESPN was looking to hire some ex-NBA executives. And Chad Ford. Chad had recommended they consider me. I just had a different kind of twist on things because I was coaching NBA players and kind of knew that route. And so I was hired on ESPN in 07 to 17. Got to be very close with Henry Abbott. So when he launched True Hoop, he had asked me to be a partner with him at True Hoop. And so I said, yes, that'd be great. And so I still work with lots of players all over the world. And I consult with a lot of teams at the high school and college levels, mostly as a volunteer to help young coaches or veteran coaches and executives. And I'm a partner with True Hoop.
Well, and what is that like when a player, let's say, let's pick a random draft class, like 2013, a draft class, someone from that draft class comes to you or their agent does and says, we want you to work with this player on this particular skill or just all around that kind of thing?
It varies. So I in 1 year, and I just don't remember dates because I've been doing this for so long, I had 6 players drafted, a lottery pick, another first-round pick. Drew Holiday, Earl Clark was in that class, DeJuan Blair, Nick Kalathis. I had 6 guys, and I think 8 of the players that summer made an NBA team from my gym. That's not typical. That was a lot of players. Normally, the agent sending me to do the full pre-draft prep. I don't do it anymore. It's like teaching the same grad school class every year, and it really isn't exciting. And rookies are just rookies, and I'd rather deal with veterans. So you're getting them ready for the draft, and you cover everything, including weaknesses, of course. But you have to maintain their strength and enhance them as well. Now, veterans, I just got a call from an agent tonight. He's got a big-time player who's in a contract year with an NBA team. And he is a terrible defender. So he asked me tonight, just now, right before I came on the air here, if we could talk later this week about the players really excited about getting some help defensively. I don't like to mention names very much. If I write about the player, I would say I have a relationship with him, but I tend not to write about my own guys. There's enough guys in the league to cover. I got to write about my guys. And so we're going to have to help this young guy play much better defense than what he's been doing if he wants to get paid a bunch of money next year. In July. So that's how it works.
And so it's you going through the whole gamut of watching tape, seeing, like, diagnosing things that they've done wrong, and then getting in the gym and working on, here's how you can correct these mistakes.
Yeah. So in this particular case, it's too late to get in the gym. He's already with his team. So we'll watch a lot of Zoom. We'll watch a lot of Synergy on Zoom, and I'll share my screen if we do it, and I'll walk them through stuff. And then it's just really, I normally help the players throughout the season. I don't ever help players outside of the context that their own team wants them to have success in. So in other words, years ago, for his whole career, I had Corey Brewer, who was a lightning fast, quick, 6'9", 7-foot wingspan, incredible basketball IQ and instincts. But if he played for a coach that didn't want him to gamble, then we really worked at being more disciplined on defense. When he played for a coach that loved him gambling, well, that was really fun because that's something he was great at. And so that's part of what I do is figure out what the coaches want and help the player and enhance their players as best as I can within the context of what the head coach and the assistants want.
A great Sixer, Corey Brewer.
Great
Sixer. Very short run, but a great Sixer.
It's a joke it's a joke they didn't keep him. It worked out great because the Kings kept him and then paid him $2 million for the last month of the season. He went out and made that money in Philly, but I thought Philly made a mistake not keeping him. He was really good when he was there.
He was
constantly off balance in a way that was effective still.
Yeah.
Just was always on the verge of falling down.
He really guards, and he's got so much energy. Now he's a coach for the Pelicans.
Oh, really?
He's going to be head NBA coach. Yeah, there's not many guys on the planet that have the coaching pedigree, excluding myself, of Rick Carlisle, George Karl, Billy Donovan. We can go on and on. And now he's coaching with Stan Van Gundy, and now, of course, Willie Green. He's forgotten more about basketball than most guys have ever learned, and really has a feel for the game and energy. I think he's going to be a great head coach one day.
Another former Sixer, Willie Green. So, but this is actually, I think, a good transition into getting to the Ben Simmons thing.
Yeah.
When we brought you on, I'm curious what you think of the skills coach class or the skills coach era, like the Hamlins and Chris Johnsons, like where the like part of it seems to be publicity within the coaching. I'm not asking you to be
It's okay.
critical of them, but curious of what you think of
Yeah.
that group of coaching.
I honestly, I don't follow much of it. I have young assistants that I've helped for a long time. One of my 14-year assistant of mine is a coach in the NBA now. And he's the head coach of the Pelicans, actually, G League team, Ryan Panone. And Ryan, for a decade, Ryan was with me again since he was 19. I think he's 35 now with 2 kids. He used to always tell me to do a lot of social media. I felt like I'm already on ESPN. The way my generation was raised, and people have referred to me as the godfather of player development, only because I'm the oldest one doing it. No one had done it before me for a business. They did it for a week or two. Tim Gergerich is famous for doing camps in the summer, but this was a year-round thing for me. And I initially started with high school, middle school age kids in the early 90s. There wasn't social media then, of course. There was barely the internet. I had business cards that I would hand out to people when they would come and watch me work these players out. There was no website to send them to. And I just always took the attitude of, it's not about me, which is the same attitude I used for my twins who are 20 years old now. It's not about me. It's about them. And I have to adjust for every single player. And I didn't like the promotional aspect of it. And again, I was already on ESPN all the time. Sports Center and radio hits and TV stuff and all the articles and whatever. And I thought that was enough. My teaching needs to be about the players, not about me. So I'm sure these other guys do great. I'm sure they help their players a ton. It's just not how I do it. And I'm like I said, it's that promotional aspect of it is really good for their business, I'm sure. I took a different approach. I do think that generally speaking, most trainers don't understand what they're doing. I don't think the gentlemen you mentioned are included in that. They clearly have a lot of success stories. But I can't go into a gym and not see a personal trainer now, in which if I had known this 30 years ago almost, I might have licensed what I was doing and had a business from it beyond myself. Most of them, it's about trick plays and cool shots and fancy moves. And it's only supposed to be about winning basketball games. That's it. My job is to develop a player to the point where he builds his value so he makes more money before he worked with me, makes money after than he did before. That's my job. It's not about trick shots. It's about winning games. That's what gets you paid. What are you doing to help your team win? Sometimes you could be Jason Tatum and make some trick shots. Most guys aren't allowed to do those things. Tatum has the luxury of being able to take some bad shots, as a lot of high-level players do. But a lot of other NBA players don't have that luxury. So, and I think that at the high school level, and then my son plays at Florida State now. He's a sophomore there now, redshirt sophomore. Actually, he's redshirt freshman. It's his second year. And I see a lot of his friends and teammates and classmates, whatever, and they're doing stuff I wouldn't even do with my NBA players. It's just stuff they'll never be allowed to do in their high school court. And whatever, I can't save them all. It's too bad.
So they're coming to you generally. I mean, I'm sure the main couple things they're asking for is if they need to get a bigger contract, they're saying, teach me to be a better defender, teach me how to shoot. Right? It's got to be
shoot, score, have more value. In some cases, they don't even know what to ask for. They just need help.
Yeah.
They're not playing. Sometimes they're out of the rotation and they want to be in the rotation. Sometimes they're in the rotation, but they want to have an expanded role. Yeah. Every player is different. It's like a fingerprint or a snowflake. Every shot's different. Every game can be built differently. There are some common threads for everyone for sure. There's some tricks I do defensively that work for everyone, but the guy that called today is a gigantic wingspan. I've worked with players that did not have gigantic wingspans. I can't teach them both the same thing because one's going to have a lot more success than the other in terms of their wingspan, their arm length. So you have to change it up a little bit for the player.
Do you think I know you're going to say that it depends on the player, but beyond that, do you think it is easier to teach someone early in their career, in the first couple of years of their career, to become a decent shooter or to become a decent defender? This is something that we talk about all the time because the Sixers seemingly consistently draft someone either without a jump shot or with no hope of defending. So what is your feeling of the more teachable skill?
All right, I'm going to give you the correct answer here because I know for sure what the answer is.
Good.
Without question, it's defense.
Mm.
Do you guys play blackjack?
Yes.
Okay. Do you hit on 16?
Well,
depends on what the dealer's got. Depends on what the dealer's got.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. If you can play blackjack and understand the rules of blackjack, you can play NBA defense. That doesn't mean you can excel. I need to know what you look like. What's your size? What's your length? What's your aggressiveness level? All these kinds of things. What's your discipline? What's your intelligence? How much brain power can you manufacture? I have a player that I help who's enormously brilliant in terms of what he can soak in to a scouting report. So I can get him prepared for 4 or 5 different guys that he might guard, which is important these days because of switches. I have some players that really need to stick with their main guy, and everything else will just have to stick to some basic rules. So I teach. I just talked to a player today. He's at training camp. He's a veteran guarantee player, and I said to him, I said, "What do you think has been the number one thing we've done with you defensively?" Because his coach, he's got a new coach, and his coach was talking about, "Hey, I need you to help some of these younger players." He said to me, he said, "Coach Thorpe, you taught me how to play blackjack," and that's exactly what we do every possession. We play blackjack. We try to put offensive players in positions where they have to hit on 16 because we're showing a 10. And if they make it, yeah, you're going to lose some of those. But you're not going to have a bad career if all you're doing is forcing players to hit on 16. No casino's getting broke that way.
So I want to move on to the Ben Simmons thing. We got an email from a listener, incensed, sent 2 very long emails about your post healing Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to read the whole email because that would take the rest of the pod, but I'll just give you the first graph. And then I of course went and read it. And then I listened to your pod that you talked about this specifically.
Yeah.
The email came from Steven and he said, "Can you guys get David Thorpe as a guest on the show? I usually love his stuff, but this is borderline condescending in its suggestion that Ben could become MVP if ... someone was just nice to him." So I guess the first question before we get into it is how closely, and you've written a lot about Simmons, so I assume the answer is pretty closely, but how closely have you followed Ben Simmons' career in Philadelphia?
Closely. And
Okay.
but let's start with the reader made a mistake, and it's my fault, obviously. The chances of Ben Simmons being an MVP because someone gives him a hug or not is very, very small.
Right.
The point is, as a coach, we are first in the business to inspire. I wrote that in my book right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this in the article, if Ben Simmons was my client or I was the executive in charge of him, this is where I would begin. How do we reverse engineer Ben, you to being an MVP? The reality is you're probably going to fall short, but at least we're shooting for that. And now we're getting a player scoring 21 and 8, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. He's not going to be the MVP, but he's going to be better, and we're going to be better too. That's the idea, right?
Right. So, but what has happened here and his frustration is, and this happens a lot, and trust me, like this podcast is not like beating our chest, Philly, defending Philly.
Yeah.
But what has happened here is that, and this is what I think your article sort of points to, which he was frustrated with. And I'll go to a quote from the pod where you said it was, quote, "unfair and sadistic the way his name has been dragged through the mud because he's had some bad games, like players haven't had bad games." Completely, I think, ignoring the context that his name wasn't dragged through the mud because he had a few bad games. His name was dragged through the mud because there was 4 years of no development, condescending addressing fans and media when they would ask about his development, and then an outrageous public stance by his agent, which blamed everyone, the fans, the coach, Joel Embiid, ownership, everyone but himself. That's why he got dragged through the mud, not because he had a few bad games. And I think like the article also, your post like says Embiid didn't do enough and basically suggests that his coaches didn't take this tack. I think that's like the heart of it, is that it feels like all of that is like we talk about the passed up dunk a lot in the fourth quarters, But I think everything else brought it to that point because I think
sure.
overall, everybody was very supportive up until that point.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I did not at all mean the Sixers as a franchise was being sadistic. They made some mistakes. That isn't the story. The way he's being treated is from the general public. When people are writing, they wouldn't trade. The Kings shouldn't trade Tyrese Halliburton for Ben Simmons. Are you fucking kidding me? Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
I thought so. What? Have you not watched Ben Simmons and Tyrese Halliburton play? Sorry, that's a done deal. Daryl Morey would never do that deal.
The Rice to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by BodyBio. It's important that I have CJ here for BodyBio because he knows the BodyBio folks, don't you? Jess and Mike.
Of course.
So we got an email from BodyBio Mike. And we were reading an email on the last pod about when you go number 2 and you have the Sharpie tip piece of poo that you cannot get to when you're wiping. And what do you do? And BodyBio Mike sent an email about it. And it made sense based on what my reaction is. Because I said that a few years ago that stopped happening to me. And I don't know what it was, but it stopped happening. So BodyBio Mike says the Sharpie tip conundrum, in my opinion, has to do with the greasiness of your BMs. We as a society, specifically men, eat a lot of protein and fats. That's not necessarily a bad thing. However, it's tough for the liver to break down those fats. As a result, your BMs get a little sludgy, making it hard for you to push them out. For the record, I feel like a sociopath writing this email. Anyway, my assumption is that Spike probably eats more plants, leafy greens, and raw vegetables. Because I'm vegan. That's why he assumed that. Those really help get rid of sticky BMs, or his protein source is just a lot less fatty because he doesn't eat animal products. Also, plugging my own product, taking BodyBio Butyrate does wonders. Mike has been begging for us to do Butyrate on Rights Ricky Sanchez, so maybe this is the leap off point. Butyrate does wonders for keeping you regular and helping you clear out. For anyone struggling with Sharpie syndrome, try this. Eat the most raw salad ever and see what your body does the next day. My raw detox salad is shaved Brussels sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, diced bell peppers, arugula, salt, pepper, red pepper flakes, olive oil, lemon, and a little grated Parmesan for fun. It's better detox than any of the BS they sell to you in a bottle. Good luck out there, guys. BodyBio cares about you. BodyBio is a supplement company for a healthier life. They are local. They are nimble. They are family owned. They are family operated. Butyrate, you can try liposomic vitamin C. You can try Elite. You can try Calm. These are all great products we've talked about and a great company that really cares about you, cares about your bowel movements. Get 20% off any BodyBio order with code RTRS20 at bodybio.com. That's 20% off Butyrate, 20% off Elite. However many times you want to use it, go ahead and use it. 20% off RTRS20 at bodybio.com. That is bodybio.com. Yeah, Daryl Morey wouldn't do that deal, but Daryl Morey wouldn't do that deal for different reasons. I guess
no, if he's trying to win a championship this year, Halliburton doesn't help them win more than Ben Simmons does. Not this year, not next year, maybe not ever. Halliburton maybe one day will be as good as what Ben Simmons has been up to the age of 24.
Of course.
Okay. Now, let me throw a couple of things at you.
Okay.
If you think Embiid's some kind of great teammate, congratulations. We don't agree. I don't think he's the worst teammate ever. Having had 80 some odd players in the NBA, I have a little insight into how different superstars can be. I would not rank Embiid. I would rank him very low so far. He's also young and very full of himself. He's allowed to grow up. And I'm the first guy to always say that. I think Joel
he's full of himself. But Ben Simmons, when he signed his contract, called himself Mr. 147 and posted a picture with a Lamborghini.
Right.
Right. So
these are young guys. I'm not even.
What are we talking about? Okay.
What about Embiid's game? Would you say about that? Just to clarify
about his game.
Yeah, about his game specifically.
I think he's an unbelievable player.
No. Sorry. What about his game? Would you say indicate he's not on court? Not as helpful as you could.
There are certain things I know that I can't really talk about because I know what's happening behind the scenes. But I would tell you that, like, Shaquille O'Neal was annoying to teammates because he was Shaquille O'Neal. He was a jokester. He was a clown. There's a story a teammate of his told me where he'd be on the exercise bike because he didn't want to practice that day. This was later in his career, but not like the last year he was playing. He was still a very good player, and the team was very, very good. And his head coach would look at him, and he'd pedal super fast, and then the head coach would look away, and he would lean back and make funny faces to his teammates. He's Shaquille O'Neal. You knew he was going to show up and compete his ass off, and I know firsthand what an amazing teammate he was one-on-one with people. Now, the experience I had with Shaq, he was a much older player than Joel. And so that's the first thing I'll defend, both Simmons and Joel, is they're allowed to grow up. I do not think the Sixers franchise, this is where I think we need to get to the bottom line here. Brett Brown's a nice man. I think he's a solid coach. I do not think they knew what they were doing as a franchise in terms of executive, coaches, and player development. Like, I don't think it's an accident that Markelle Fultz had happened to him what had happened. No, and at the same time, Ben Simmons flatlined. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a result of the franchise they were playing for at the time.
Well, certainly through multiple regimes and weirdness, and
starts at the top.
Not continuity. Yeah.
Right. It's just like the Sacramento Kings are extremely sick as a franchise. I would not call the Sixers extremely sick. I'm a huge fan of Daryl, and I'm a friend of Daryl. I actually think he's the best talent accumulator in the league. If you look at all the different ways, not just tanking for picks like Sam's doing right now and trading all these good players, but in terms of just finding guys that can play NBA, I think Daryl's the best we have in the league at that. I really do. And he negotiates a hard contract too. I think that Ben Simmons, and I wrote about him at ESPN when he was in the draft. You can go back and look. I wrote that I think he's got a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year. He reminded me of a super tall Jason Kidd defensively. And I also pointed out that my people in Australia have told me he can be really lazy. And at LSU, he was lazy. And I don't know how ambitious Ben Simmons is. Remember I said you were first in the business to inspire. I don't know that Ben Simmons really has wanted to be the best player in the league. Even if he couldn't be, it's nice to aspire to have that. I don't know that he ever had that. And I think the Sixers failed to bring it out of him. And that's as much Ben's fault. All of this is as much Ben's fault as anyone. It's a mistake to think that it's not. Because you could be in a terrible franchise and outgrow that franchise, whether you leave or not, because you put your own team together. Ben Simmons has his own team, Simmons. Now, it's a different team. I don't know who was his agent before, but whoever it was, it wasn't working great. I understand where you guys are coming from and the frustration. Obviously, I do. I hope that Daryl can. I don't think it's going to be. It could be Beal. I don't think it's going to be Lillard, but it could be Lillard. I think it's more likely Beal than Lillard. If it was going to be Dame Lillard, it already had happened, I think, because that deal is so easy. It's going to be hard to replace Ben Simmons, guys. Really, really, really fucking hard. You don't think so, Spike? I know.
Well, no, but I
think it's
don't.
going to be really hard.
Well, but he does this thing. You're not wrong, but I think you're. I think you have to ignore something very important to say that. And by the way, like, we basically agree at the heart of it, but I think it's such a big issue that it shadows every other issue. That issue in, like, all right, because you say this in the article, if Ben really wants this, he's going to have to agree he wants it, put all of his hangers on to the back, and admit his faults and admit to work on them.
Yeah.
Like that is the enormous problem with Ben Simmons over everything else, right? So I think we agree there.
Yeah.
But the you're going to miss Ben Simmons and the, like, he's better than Tyrese Halliburton and all that kind of stuff. The problem is that what he is now makes it nearly impossible to win a championship because of his specific limitations and the position that he insists on playing.
Okay, so hold on, Spike.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yep.
I know you guys know the game really well. Did Marcus Gasol play his last 7 years like he did his first 8?
No.
Is Brook Lopez playing the way he used to play?
No.
Okay. So while you're absolutely right, Spike, that this Ben Simmons, if he never grows, and he hasn't, in fact, he's receded a little bit, and I wrote that. This Ben Simmons, yes, it very well may be the case that this Ben Simmons and that Sixers franchise could never have won a championship because of his lack of growth. Although I think given a couple more years, Daryl would have accumulated a deeper bench. And I mean, to me, you've done that. I think your bench this year is going to be much stronger than it was last year. If Ben Simmons was there, George Yang is a huge upgrade over Mike Scott. Enormous upgrade. Trust me when I tell you that. I watched every Jazz game last year because I thought they were going to win the championship, and I wanted to get really familiar with them, and I fell in love with George Yang. Unfortunately, I also had to watch a lot of Jordan Clarkson. That wasn't as fun, although he is a hell of a scorer. Again, Spike, it gets down to this bottom line. Is Ben willing to look at himself and say, okay, I've got to do more. I've got to be better. I have to be willing to get embarrassed. And I did an interview last night with one of the best sports writers, I think, in the country. I don't want to say more until she writes it on this exact topic. She believes, and she's smarter than me, not about basketball, but about people and life, that Ben's just so afraid to be embarrassed by missing free throws. Okay, right. Yeah. I know it's not such rocket science.
Yeah.
And so maybe he just won't look in the mirror and say, okay, I've got to be willing to be Giannis and just miss that free throw after free. Giannis doesn't give a fuck. He just keeps attacking. And it's such a great model for Ben. But he's done this already. Giannis didn't need to go 17 and 19 in the last game for Ben to have realized, well, I should just be like this guy. And it hasn't happened. I think it can happen. Spike, if I took your attitude for a 24-year-old, I'd be out of the coaching business, right? You're not doing anything wrong.
We're right, and I'm not. Yeah, I completely agree that
you're allowed to take the approach you're taking, and you can be as skeptical as you want. And it may end up being the case where you're right and I'm wrong. Of course, he may never grow. Lots of players don't grow, but lots of players do. A change of scene. I don't like how Rich Paul's handling it at all. Let me be clear about that. I think it's a huge mistake. I don't remember if it was that article, Spike, but one of the recent ones I wrote, I praised how Bradley Beal. You think Bradley Beal really wants to stay in Washington? No fucking way. No fucking way. But you just have to kind of take his word for it. You're not going to lowball Tommy Shepard because Bradley's doing everything correct, including yesterday's first practice, his quotes afterwards. The best chance for Bradley to get on the best team he can get to, which is going to be a contending team, is to toe that line. That's how I think it should be done. And I think Rich Paul screwed up with that.
Yeah. I think the difference with Ben, and obviously gets compared to Giannis a lot. Giannis came out as such a different player, such a more raw, borderline uncoordinated, like just so many things to put together. And the growth that he showed over 3 years and then 6 years, and as he's now into the meat of his prime, was so ridiculous. And Ben came out, and aside from the first year, which he didn't play at all with the broken foot, but came out and was immediately like, I'm one of the best players in the NBA, and led the Sixers to finished the season with 16 straight wins without Joel.
And he was great.
And was great.
Yeah.
And offensively, he hasn't improved.
Nope.
I would say defensively he's improved significantly, but offensively he hasn't improved, and arguably has taken a step back and has decided to do fewer things, basically, to really even more narrow what he wants to do. Do you think that if you're Ben Simmons' camp, you're advising Ben Simmons, and you want him to become Giannis, you want him to be like, hey, go be that guy.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible for that to happen when you're on a team with Joel Embiid, who is better than you for sure, and also deservedly needs the ball in the post a lot, to which makes you just the stand around for some number of possessions at a time guy? So wouldn't you want him to get a change of scenery, go have your own team, and then make those mistakes so that you can become whatever version of Giannis you want him to become?
It's a great question. I think that, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, and I've written this and I've said this, and maybe I'm pretty sure I looked it up multiple times, but maybe I'm wrong. The combination as a duo was the best duo in the league, right? Plus minus, Embiid and Simmons. So as a couple, it was spectacular. For Ben Simmons, definitely not a good matchup. And I wrote this. Embiid's gravity, which is enormous, as it should be, he's incredible, draws everyone exactly where Ben Simmons doesn't want them to be.
Right.
That's why he'd be unbelievable with Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. imagine the gravity those guys have. Imagine Embiid with Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Right. You would have Jupiter, and Saturn on opposite ends. It'd be unbelievable. So I don't think it's great for Ben Simmons. That doesn't mean he couldn't be very good. Of course he could be. And he has been very good. He's been a top 25 player by most metrics you evaluate. I don't think it's fair to say, though, that Ben Simmons couldn't have been. It's not fair to say because Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons couldn't be much better than he is. It's not Joel Embiid's fault that he won't drive. It's not Joel Embiid's fault that he won't get fouled and then he's missing those shots and then he won't take mid-range shots. It's not Embiid's fault. He plays plenty of minutes without Joel Embiid.
Although Doc did start, especially as the season went on, pairing them more and more. And it's on the Sixers multiple regimes for never finding a serviceable backup for Joel outside of the guy they paid $30 million to do it, and Al Horford.
Right. Which I thought would be really good. I thought that would,
which it would have been if you had Al Horford for like the mid level, and then he was just Embiid's backup and played when Embiid wasn't there, it would have been great. Yeah, but the Sixers have never, outside of Horford, have never had a playable stretch five for Simmons.
Right.
And so it's had to be either Embiid has been his best stretch five, basically, and that's obviously not what you want Embiid to do.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by our friend Adam Kornblau, Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. CJ, since you joined us during the pandemic, the only one of our clients you've met, because you did work for him, was BodyBio, right?
That's right.
So you never got to meet. Oh, did you meet LL?
I met him in person, but I interacted with him on Twitter. He was one of the first people to follow me.
There you go. That's
big Ricky guy.
Big follow back. Big follow back guy. Did you? So you've never met Kornblau, which is disappointing. Great guy. One of my favorite moments is when he came to the live pod at Underground Arts, and they did Kornblau corn dogs, and we sold out of them. And I think he bought 50 Kornblau corn dogs for people. He's you hear about personal injury lawyers a lot, and Kornblau and Kornblau is the premier boutique personal injury law firm in the Delaware Valley. But when you're hearing those ads for personal injury lawyers, you're not really getting that lawyer. What happens is you call, and they're really just referring to other places. So it's an actual law firm, but they're not really taking your case. That's why Kornblau is different, because he is taking your case. And he's not only helped Ricky listeners with personal injury lawsuits, which is what their specialty is over there, but any sort of legal problem, he's there. You send him an email, you give him a call, he's there. And I'm promising you, when you call them, you're going to get him. So when we tell all these great stories about Kornblau and Kornblau and what Adam is like, that's what you're going to get. And I think that's really important. And having been through a personal injury lawsuit, they take forever. They're very frustrating. There's a lot of twists and turns, and you need somebody you can trust, leading you. And we vouch for him. We vouch for Kornblau and Kornblau. So if you think you might have a case, any sort of personal injury, medical malpractice, injured at work, car accident, any of those things, slip and fall, give them a call or shoot them an email. It doesn't cost you anything until there are results. 215-576-7200. That is 215-576-7200. Ask for Adam, or email kornblau@kornblauandkornblau.com. The Kornblau spelled with a K, and the "and" in that email address is spelled out A-N-D. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process.
Right. It's not the best way to use Joel. Yeah, it's not a perfect partnership that way. There are some deals that Daryl can do that I think will really enhance the Sixers, and they can be better than they would have been with Ben Simmons if they can get those deals done. Who knows if they can. I don't like. Listen, I'm a hard ass coach. I come off as a hugger and a lover, and I definitely am. But I told this agent that I talked to tonight about a player. Like, I just did 2 days of studying about this one player he wants me to help. It's not a pretty picture, and so what I have to tell the agent when he calls me tomorrow is, here's the stats. Here's the video. This is the truth about how bad he is on defense. He's a terrible defensive player. Can the player handle that? If he can't, I'm not the person to talk to, because I'm not going to be all puppy dogs and ice cream. I always tell my players and my children, you're only get the truth from me, except for my daughter I told on her wedding day. Then no matter what you look like, I'm going to say, you look great, which I hope she will anyway, but which hopefully is a long time from now. She's only 20. But I'm never going to lie to my kids. I'm never going to lie to my players. And Ben Simmons has to have a pretty stern talking to. Now, why Rich Paul is doing what he's doing is a separate thing. I had someone very smart tell me But if he can get Ben Simmons where Ben Simmons wants to go, and Ben Simmons not the level Harden, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, he's a level below that, we'd all agree. Well, that means he's going to go after Damian Lillard next, and whoever else he wants to. But clearly want out and don't know how to do it. Damian really doesn't want to stay in Portland. You can read his comments and guess that. But he doesn't want to be the bad guy either. So Rich Paul gets this done, and he's banging on Damian every day.
Do you think Henry Abbott, maybe your coworker and partner, your partner, like, I think maybe because when he reported that Lillard was going to ask out, I believe him. Like I believe most people of that level, even when it doesn't come to fruition, were right in their information. I think it's one of those things where the reporting of it may have changed it. In that,
Spike, you're a smart man. Spike, did you ever?
Yeah,
Spike, you're so smart. Did you guys? You're insightful. Did you guys ever see the movie All the President's Men?
Sure.
I did not. I have not.
Really?
Okay. I've never seen The Godfather.
Okay.
A lot of holes in my movie.
I've seen it, but continue.
Okay. So I read the book every year. It's a good reminder of just how corrupt our government can be and how important our media is. But in the movie, I don't remember if it's in the book or not. You'd think I would. Ben Bradley's played by Jason Robards. He tells the two journalists a story. Spike, this goes exactly what you're saying. He got word that President Johnson was going to name was going to basically fire Hoover from the FBI, the guy who led the FBI. They get off the plane. He's expecting to hear he's fired, and they printed it. They wrote the story. He's firing him. And Johnson named Hoover FBI director for life. And then he said, "Tell Ben Bradley, go fuck yourself." And Bradley tells reporters, "But I wasn't wrong. I got the source." So to be specific as it relates to Damian, all I can say is what Henry wrote is that he was going to request a trade. He didn't say he was going to say, "Guys, in our meeting this week, I need to be traded now." That's not what Henry wrote. Henry nailed it perfectly. We are 100% confident that everything that was written is exactly what happened. And Damian himself has said so many times that basically, does anyone in Portland really think Damian wants to be there forever? Minus, some blockbuster deal. Like if they got Ben Simmons and kept Damian Lillard, although I don't think that's exactly what Damian wants, he might stay. Like you can make the argument, adding another all-star, adding the best defensive player that is named Rudy Gobert in the world, that'd be a good thing. But the reporting is the reporting, and we definitely got it right. I think, but to the point, Spike, if you're Rich Paul and you can get Ben where you want him to go, and this is the age of player empowerment, all of that, I'm all for it, but it comes at a cost. There's a tax to it. And that means your privileges to do what you want, just like I'm a minority owner of a soccer team in Europe. Used to be in the Premier League. We've been relegated, so we're now in the Championship League in England, in Wales. The team's called Swansea City. And the reason we got relegated is because we had two players having great seasons, breakout seasons. And they were being paid well. But because they're breakout seasons for our middling team, who I think finished 10th on the table that year, which is, there's 20 teams in the league. We finished great. They held out. And so we told, our management, well, screw them. Let's just keep playing. They're going to have to come back. And they said, no, it doesn't work that way. I actually flew there to Wales. It doesn't work that way. The agents dictate everything. And if we don't let them go, then we'll never get any players again because all the agents will band together and we'll be screwed. And so we had to let them go, and we got relegated because of it. Because it wasn't time to replace them with quality players. There's no trades over there. That's what's happening here now, guys. More and more we're seeing it. It's just a matter of what level you're at to demand and dictate what you get. But Rich Paul is, okay, all right, Rich, you're on the clock here. Ben Simmons, it could have gone differently in Philly, and maybe he wouldn't have got any better, and maybe he would have been a pariah, or maybe not. But you have broken the mold, and now you own it, and let's just see how Ben Simmons' career goes from here. If you can get him to wherever you think is the best spot, and he flourishes, well, Rich Paul is going to even be a more powerful agent. But if Ben Simmons kind of keeps going down, that's not going to go well for him. So we'll see what happens.
Well, there's as far as value goes, like it's very clear that Ben has a higher value, will have a higher value in 6 months or a year than he has right now. And obviously had a higher value 6 months or a year ago than he has right now. And there's two ways to go about it, where if you're good enough, if you're Anthony Davis or James Harden, you can do whatever you want and still get the full boat in a return.
Yep.
Or you're Jimmy Butler and you trade him for Covington, Dario, and Jared Bayless and no picks. And Daryl knows the history of that. And especially with like how much time is left on Ben's contract, and you're factoring in Embiid's prime, which will be who knows how long, hopefully very long, but who knows how long. There's a narrow line to walk between like be patient and like we don't have all the time in the world here. So there's nobody you trust more than Daryl in this situation to handle these assets and whether it's trade pieces, picks wise, or Simmons himself, or whatever they think they can get back, or whatever they think they can get back. If that's like a half step from the next trade, if it's picks and stuff, the players, the environment around the league, how a team thinks and ticks, and what the bad vibes are around a team as this stuff hangs over their head. If you're advising Daryl Morey, what do you advise? What do you say for him to do?
I almost never dodge any question, but Daryl, I just think he's the smartest guy, and I'll answer your question as best I can. But I wouldn't pretend to know that I know better than Daryl in this situation. And I'm going to ask you guys the question too, as someone who follows the Sixers so closely. I think Daryl's got to measure how long they can go without. I mean, right now, Tyrese Maxey is starting point guard.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Maxey fan.
Same.
I talked to him before the draft.
Love it.
He and his dad. I think he's got a lot of Kyle Lowry in him. It's going to take a while. It did for Kyle, too. He is not ready to help your team win a championship this year. If he is, fantastic. But it's naive to think that he is. He's very young. I like Shake Milton. I'm not sure he's the answer. I'm pretty sure Seth Curry isn't the answer as your organizing principle at one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hole there.
There's an argument to be made that without Simmons, they are far and away the worst passing team in the league.
That's exactly right. I pretty much wrote that. And their defense is taking a huge hit too.
Yeah. I mean, although with Embiid there, you can put four guys around Embiid and they'll be a serviceable defense, but not as high.
Right. They won't be 30th. Right. Yeah. Except that it does carry a toll. I think someone on Joel, Ben really helps him a little bit. And you can allow Joel to focus on offense more.
Sure.
I think Daryl's got to weigh those odds. So right now he wants Beal or Lillard. I would guess. Let's just play a game. Those are the two guys he wants most. He would take Kawhi too if Kawhi was healthy. But you know what I mean? Guys that he can get.
Mm-hmm.
As the weeks go on and the losses pile up and the East, the Nets bubble up and the Heat bubble up and maybe the Raptors are doing better than people think and the Celtics kind of form a cohesive unit defensively under a new coach and they play well and all of a sudden Philly's 5th seed, 6th seed playing. All things are all possible. And Embiid's an injury away from the team really maybe being bad.
Mm-hmm. So
you can't wait too long. And so you just start lowering your standards a little bit. I think Daryl really sees big picture and is very transactional in the best way for these situations.
Right.
And and to defend Daryl on one thing, having had many players that I've helped that I've been on Daryl Morey teams, he's actually a warm guy.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff you guys have done. He likes Broadway. He's funny. He's quirky in the best way. So
is Sam in his own way.
I know Sam really well. Yeah. Sam and Henry Abbott are great friends. I think that it's unfortunate and they're going to have to answer this question all the time. But I also know there's a lot to focus on, and if Daryl hasn't said this, he will. I'll do what I have to do. You guys got to focus on trying to get better. Whether Ben Simmons comes back, which he ain't coming back, or whoever we get for him. And I want to ask you guys about that in a second. We got a job to do. Let's focus on that. We're professionals. The question I have for you guys is one of the trades I put in there. It can't happen, I think, because I think Ben would say no. Amazingly enough, there is Henry and I argue about this all the time. Is Rich Paul really going to turn down a trade and basically tell the team we're not reporting? That's if he's going to a good team, not Cleveland. Would you take it? Would you do it? Would you be willing as Sixers fans to think we're going to be contenders if we trade Ben Simmons for Brogdon, TJ Warren, and some other guys. But those are the two starters you would get. Would you say no to that?
We've talked about this, I think.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot.
I'm sorry I didn't hear it. So what was
no,
your
that's fine. It's that's one of the like C+, B- type.
Yeah, it's not the best deal.
Yeah,
but I think you may have to take those.
Right, for sure. I think if you could find a way to make it a 3-teamer where you get Brogdon and like a Malik Beasley and a bunch of picks where you can then eventually package them into it. I think Brogdon or TJ Warren's obviously a good player. Totally roasted the Sixers every time he plays against them. But him and Tobias is a tough fit. Two guys who don't really want to shoot threes very often and are a little bit slow defensively. Brogdon's a good player. Brogdon's definitely a good player and would definitely help for sure.
The gigantic hole you have.
Yeah.
There seems like there's something wrong with Brogdon. like not we had a very anti-Brogdon stance in the beginning because he stole the Rookie of the Year from either Dario or Embiid, but came to really appreciate him as a player. It seems like there's something off in that. There's just something off. I don't know, personality wise. Like, is there something there that isn't right?
Do you know what his nickname is?
What? Oh, the
Governor.
mayor or something.
What do they call him?
Governor.
What?
I heard it as president.
Oh, may have
Okay,
been both. Yeah.
Like he carries himself like he's going to be the next president.
For sure.
Philly could use that. Although Tobias, from what I understand, and I've been a fan of Tobias Harris since he was 18 at Tennessee, and thought, I mean, I don't think he's even 30 yet. Am I right?
No, he's not 30.
He's been in the league forever. I love that kid, and I've heard he's just the nicest guy. Like teammates of his swear by him. So it's not like they have no good guys.
And that's the other situation where if you don't get something you like for Ben, then you go, all right, well, maybe we trade Tobias also and make this into a whole rebuild. And then the locker room, right? And then the locker room gets,
you're right,
more upended. And
you're right.
It's a complicated situation. Also, Tobias Embiid is a really nice 4-5. Tobias has had to play more, whatever.
It's an identity thing too, guys. Tell me, you know better than me. I only know it from studying all the film that I watch. When I watch the Sixers play, guys, I'm very big on identity for a team. I think it's such an important thing. A couple years ago, well, not a couple years ago, last year in June, I think of 2020, when it looked like the league was going to come back together, I wrote an article saying the Lakers are going to win the championship. And my argument was, no one has the time to build a title-winning identity. They already have it. The Clippers are all over the place. I thought the Clippers had the more talented team. But I thought the Lakers, because of LeBron and his OCD, they knew who they were. And in the bubble situation, no one's going to be able to get past that. And obviously they won a championship. Not that it was such a genius to pick them in June. But the Sixers' identity to me is they're just going to fucking pound you in the paint. Watch Tobias Harris clips. Just go to Synergy, click on points. Post up, post up, post up, post up. Bang people down, bang people down. Embiid, we know what Embiid does. There's an identity to that. Ben Simmons at the rim too. So losing Harris, you would change your identity.
Yeah. I'm in a negative place. Tobias Harris is a fine player, but I actually don't think he's a great fit next to Embiid. I think a power forward next to Embiid has to be sort of like without a conscience as far as 3-point shooting goes, and he's done well with those guys. And Tobias just takes too much time with every shot that he takes. He's a good player and a great guy, but
he's big and physical, but isn't physical when he drives. He never gets fouls.
He doesn't draw fouls, right? I do think that
is that something you can teach? You can learn, rather?
Sure. Oh,
I think he's capable of adding that to his game and adding.
I mean, Tobias probably won't add it now.
Yeah.
Fake more. Learn to change your speed. The surge dribble. Sudden starts, sudden stops. Taking better angles. The league just legislated against certain things you can do.
Yeah. So.
But those are all things you could have done before.
By the way, I don't want to miss out on, you asked what Malcolm Brogdon's nickname was. I said mayor, Mike said governor, and then you said president.
Yeah.
that's I still don't know which one it was.
I'm pretty sure it was president, but all of us were thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I still think that if his biggest thing is to take that first step, and what he's doing now is, I think he's the first person in the history of the league to request a trade because he fucked up, instead of like, normally it's the rest of the team isn't good enough. But he simply, he's requesting a trade because he can't like even imagine coming back after what happened. And it's sad on one level, but also on the other level to imagine the evolution from that to what the best version of him is, seems, I assume it's possible, but seems almost unbelievable.
I'll leave you with this. You remember when DeMarcus Cousins was incredible and the biggest horse's ass ever?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I had dinner one night with George Karl. They were not getting along, if you remember. And we had
George doesn't get along with too many people.
Yeah.
I found that I knew him just via phone calls and stuff. I actually found him to be a delightful human being. I was so surprised how intelligent he was. And we talked about he had cancer, his son had cancer. It was really one of my more memorable dinners the last 10 years or so. But he told me what I'd said to you guys. I've been saying this for years. Players are allowed to grow up. He said, I think DeMarcus Cousins is going to grow up. He said, I just don't think it's going to happen in Sacramento. And he was right. Mm-hmm. And people that I know that played with DeMarcus in Sacramento and then years later at other places like New Orleans, Golden State, he had changed so much. Now, I know he's very different than Ben Simmons in many ways. But had he not gotten injured the way he did, DeMarcus Cousins was killing it for Golden State, killing it, and totally humble. In fact, I heard Anthony Davis really changed him. I have a guy that I helped in New Orleans who said AD is so amazing, and he took DeMarcus under his wing as a real equal, and it really helped DeMarcus. Ben needs that. Ben needs some big brotherly love. No pun intended. And he needs some tough talk. Like you just haven't been good enough. And I won't begin to pretend that I know everything that happened in Philadelphia, and you guys don't either. It may be something that happened with Ben and Joel or whatever that we'll never know. The bottom line is I don't think it's been handled great by Ben Simmons and his group. I don't know what Doc did privately. I know what he did publicly. That clearly didn't work out great. He's never come back to Philly. And it's unfortunate because I think the Sixers have what it takes and things in place to be right there every year. And now they're lucky they got a great transactional guy who's going to do something. And I like what you said about if you have to take a bunch of picks so you can move them for a player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or whatever. I can't believe he's going to be happy playing for that terrible team. I think that's another way to do it too, is get starters to fill some holes and get some guys that we can move for some other good player.
I appreciate you coming on. You can follow on Twitter at Coach Thorpe and truehoop.com, where you write and you podcast and all that stuff. And the next time that a listener gets furious at something you write, I'll reach out and I'll let you know.
You can't agree with everything, but I've done this a long time. And I don't know everything, so I'm happy to get criticism anytime someone wants to give it to me.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
Thank
you, David.
Thanks to Coach for coming on. Thanks to you for listening. We have about a bazillion emails to get to. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. Daryl, please trade them. Just please, anything. Make it stop. Make it stop.
We're doing it. We're here. We're alive. We're surviving
for now.
Every day.
For now.
I have company over, so now they're loud out there. So
I saw you muting a bunch. Yeah,
I'm muting. I'm trying to hold. There's doorbells. There's all this stuff. So, Are you down with TTP?
Oh yes, you know Lickfit.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
That's a plan B.